With Nicole, Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host, and Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Mindset Monday. Mindset Monday is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to have a chat, an interactive chat about whatever it is we want to talk about. And today we're talking about double consciousness, and whether or not Black parents should teach double consciousness or double identity to their children. Should they do that? We will define what that is, and as well as talk about whether or not that's relative in 2022 or not. So, we have a very special guest on who I'm excited and delighted to have here with me. But before I introduce him and bring him on the screen with me, I want to hear from y'all. I want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? We are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Roku TV via the Greater Works Network. So in the comments on Facebook and YouTube, if you will, in the comments, let us know what city and state you are tuning in from. So I see my cousin Denise, who is faithfully here tuning in all the way from Texas. Thank you for being with us. My sister Shayla, hey sis, who is down in South Florida. Thank you for being here. Letitia in Tallahassee. Thank you. Miss Shirley in Tallahassee. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. So September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And so we've been highlighting that some this month, but just want to, make folks aware of suicide, and talking about that is not one of the risk factors, okay? But we do want people to be aware. So I see a few more of you chiming in. I see my mom in Miami. Hey, Ma. I see Miss Olivia in Orlando. Miss Pamela Jones-Smith in Tally. Thank you. Miss Vanessa, hey. Hadn't seen you in a while. Thanks for being on here. Miss Harris, who is my teacher over at Bond Elementary. Thank you for being here. And Miss Tracy Golay right here in Tally Ho. Thank you so much. And we got Mario Theodore here in Tallahassee too. Thank you for being here, Mario. I appreciate it. So for those of you who may be new to the platform, I invite you to like and share. And if you're new to YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We need all the support we can get. All right. So this is an interactive live. This is a safe space. We do expect you to communicate, putting your comments and your questions in the chat, and we definitely will do our very best to get to them. So let me tell you about Mr. A. Michael Davidson. He is originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, where he studied biology at Xavier University, HBCU Love. Michael's background in biology led to a lucrative 16-year career in biological research. Part of his role was training students in various laboratory techniques. He witnessed the students struggling with matters outside of their academic pursuits and made himself available as an additional form of support. As someone always drawn to helping others, Michael returned to academia and earned a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling from the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Go Rattlers. Michael incorporates his knowledge of biology in his work with clients, specializing in marginalized communities. Many of his clients have endured a great deal of trauma, prompting his secondary specialization in trauma informed practices. He is located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, and provides services across the entire state of Florida. So help me welcome Mr. Michael Davidson. Yay!
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me, Nicole.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you so much. Folks are still chiming in, saying hi and welcome. So, Michael, tell the peoples, who is Michael Davidson? I did read a little bit about you, but also um, your background in terms of the biology and the your masters. But tell them, who are you? Not what you do, but who are you?
Who am I? Well, I'm a child of God. Uh, I try to live my life according to the way Christ taught his disciples, and I'm human, so that's something I struggle with, But an early on mentor of mine told me to live my life in a way such that if what I'm doing was published on the front page of the newspaper, I wouldn't be ashamed if, like, my kindergarten teacher, Jesus himself, or my mother read those things. And I'm not gonna lie, I struggle with that, right? But in most things that I do, I keep that at the forefront of my mind. Like, what would mom say about this? What about my teachers? And what would Jesus say about this, right?
Hmm.
And I like to think I'm an open-minded person. Yet I
Mhm.
still find myself challenged with things that I thought I was, like, knowledgeable about, and I was totally open-minded about.
Mhm.
But in certain situations, I face this. It's a situation, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know as much as I thought I did, or I'm not as open-minded as I thought I was.
Mm.
And so then placing aside any preconceived notions so that I could learn more. Um, and that's I guess another thing I would say. I'm so committed to lifelong learning. Um, that's I am, like, so passionate about learning. I can't stop.
Okay. So do I see a PhD in your future?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Good deal. Well, I'm a lifelong learner as well, so you are in good company tonight. So before we get started, and I see a few more folks commenting. Thank you, Michael, for being here, and my sister Susan, my sister friend Susan up in Hampton, Virginia. Before we get started, I'd like to read a little disclaimer since I have a clinician on, and that is that all topics, past, present, and future, on Conversations with Nicole are for informational purposes only, and they are not to be used as a diagnosis for treatment or an answer to any personal issues related to the topic being discussed before, during, or after the program. All right. So, uh, let's jump in. Let's jump in. So our topic is double consciousness. Double consciousness. So that phrase was coined back in like 1903 from W.E.B. Du Bois, or Du Bois, as some people say,
Mhm,
and it talks about the two-ness, and,
mhm,
and two-ness is a term that is used in terms of this, double life that Black folks in America have to live, right?
mhm,
And so in 2022, post Obama, post civil rights, right? Double consciousness, is there a need for us to be one way around our fellow Black brothers and sisters and the rest of the world? Or, white folks in America, is there a need to have a double consciousness?
I'm always careful with the word need or should.
Okay. All
And
right.
I say that because it depends. I don't think we need it. I
Mm-hmm.
think it can be helpful or useful, but I don't
Okay.
think we need it.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
not
let's ask the viewers too. What do y'all think? In the comments, let us know. You think a double consciousness is needed? Give us either thumbs up, a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a yes or a no. In the comments, let us know. Let us know. We're gonna do a little poll. Do Black folks in America is a double consciousness a necessity? Is it a necessity? Let us know. Or can we take on the mindset that we are all just human and be colorblind? I want to know. I want to know. And the subtitle to this is, should Black parents raise their children to have double identities? Should should Black parents raise their children to have double identities? All right. So we have a few people chiming in saying yes. Yes, yes, yes. I see you, Nick Maddox. Thanks for being here. Okay. Nick said absolutely not. All right. Okay. So three yeses and one no so far. All right. Hey, Miss Marion. Thank you. She said yes. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. All right. So, all right. Denise said no. Olivia said yes. Okay. So far, the yeses have it.
Mhm.
All right. So tell me, give me your thoughts around. But yeah, I know you said need and necessity is something that you know, don't necessarily agree with.
Mhm.
Um, it can definitely be helpful. And you and I had a conversation a few days ago around this being like a post, you know, so our history here is around slavery, right?
Mhm.
And so some of what we experience or our ancestors experience is still affecting us today, right?
Yeah.
And whereas maybe some things that were done to protect our children back then may not still need to be done now.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So you and I talked about the so our children being kind of soft nowadays, right?
Mhm.
Maybe not having the resilience that uh, that, and I'm a bit older than you, but that maybe I was raised with, maybe my parents were raised with, right?
Yeah.
And some of that I think is some socioeconomic type, you
Mhm.
know, issues. So maybe it's more of a classes um, issue than it is a race issue.
Mhm.
Let me pause real quick because I see Nick's question and I want to clarify. He said, wait, did I understand the question to be that we should teach our children to have dual personalities? So I didn't say personalities, but identity. So you can kind of maybe use that synonymously. But the whole idea is around, I'll give you an example. Nick, so should we continue to have the talk with our children about dealing with law enforcement? Do we need to have that talk anymore or not? Because maybe there might be a officer that has a bias against African American children and or people, and your child may not have experienced the racism, the prejudice, the bias, and so in order for them to make it home safely, right? Essentially, that's the key, right? You don't pop off at the mouth. Don't, we want you to be able to make it home. So you need to do these things, right? In terms of pulling out your ID slowly, making sure your hands are attended to if you're driving, you know. So do we need to continue to have the talk? Or are we colorblind? Should we, operate from a standpoint of, we're just all human? That's kind of the premise of the question. So my mom said she had to be in the 60s. She said I sure had to be in the 60s to break through as a designer in Miami's garment district. All right. Let's see. So Nick says, sadly, I have to say we do have to have that talk, but dual personalities, question mark. All right. So what we would probably say nowadays is like code switching. Okay. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I think double consciousness or code switching. I think it's still applicable to today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wish we didn't need it, but I think in certain circumstances it's beneficial to be able to, right? And certainly interacting with law enforcement is one example, irrespective of the ethnicity or cultural background of the officer.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like a whole nother thing of law enforcement and African American folks. The historical implications of that alone are just set up to be anti African American, anti Black.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I do think a double consciousness is still relevant today.
Okay.
Um, and I don't know that we need to teach it. I think some some youth or some young adults might inherently develop that skill. I think a lot of young professionals today, my age and older, um, I think for us it was inherent. Um, you know that in certain spaces, some things are just it's just not professional, and that's one way that in our American society, how they term it is professional, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, being loud, talking, certain hairstyles, those kinds of things, they'll term it as professionalism. When you might just literally be authentically being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But those things in corporate America, for example, might count against you. And so understanding how that system works, and either you're gonna try to fit in it or you're gonna totally reject it and like go your own way. Um, and bravo to the people who can totally reject it and go their own way. I'm not there yet. I wish I were. I wish I were.
Right.
Um, and so
So
I
so
go
let
ahead.
me interject here real quick because Solomon has a comment that I think kind of lines up with what you're talking about. He says we need to teach our children policies, rules, regulations, laws, and rights. Basically, black and white is what needs to be taught. Any other way is setting our babies up for failure. So I think that what happens, you know, maybe we shelter our children, maybe they are um, in certain environments that kind of incubate them. And then when they kind of step outside of that environment and are exposed to some other experiences, um, then they're made aware of how, folks can maybe prejudge you
Mhm.
without just because of the skin that you're in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so what what I'm understanding Solomon saying is that um, we teach them like the law of the land, the way as humans we should be living.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but don't paint this rose colored picture for them. Let them know the reality of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
The color of your skin means you're going to be treated differently. And if you don't prepare your kids for that, that could be majorly like life crushing. Even if your parents don't prepare you for that, like I don't know what the stats are, but as a black person in America, you are going to have an experience that will show you the color of your skin if you don't already know and accept what it means to be black for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if your parents have prepared you for that moment, then you can be more resilient, right? And bouncing back from that. It doesn't mean that your life is going to like fall apart and you're going to have an identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
If, however, you've believed and grown up with the rose colored, sunglasses that in our society we're all equal and like we should be colorblind because equality is everywhere, right? If you then get slapped with that discrimination based solely on the color of your skin or the texture of your hair, your name, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
that's crushing. That's crushing. And there's always different responses people can have. You can do the total denial, right? Like, oh, they don't know me, like they don't know I'm not one of those black people. So they just need to get to know me. And if they got to know me, they would know that I'm not like that. Um or just being so confused, like I don't even understand why this person called me that. Or, this woman in the line in a grocery store cut me off, and it might not even cross their mind that they're being treated this way because of the color of their skin,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not something that they've even thought of. Uh, Partly because perhaps their parents didn't tell them, or they hadn't experienced it growing up. And it's easy to live a life in denial. And the what perpetuates denial is that you're clueless. You don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So if we prepare our kids by not teaching them double consciousness, but showing them the world will treat them differently, right? I don't think we have to show them how, but I think providing that love, care, and support at home
Mm-hmm.
while still teaching them the world won't see you this way just because. I think that would set our kids up for success.
So that sounds really great.
Okay.
It sounds really great in theory, but I just think that again, so I have traveled abroad, and my experience has been I've been to Cuba, I've been to Japan, I've been to Dubai. My experience in Cuba was there was not um, this racial divide. Like you could see, I actually witnessed like the one of the blackest black girls I had ever seen on the beach with like the whitest white boy, blonde hair, blue eyed, and it was like no big deal, you know. Um, Over there it felt like there were Cubans, like their country people, regardless of what shade of skin they had, the texture of their hair, whatever. And then there were non-Cubans, which were the
Hmm.
tourists,
Yeah.
right? And so I just feel like we kind of get caught up on the race thing a whole lot, and we are often reminded
Hmm.
of the race thing when we go out into the world, right? So again, we may shelter our children in our homes, in our places of worship, amongst our family members in certain places and spaces, but once they kind of step out of that, and if they have not experienced discrimination or bias or what have you, um, will they be able to handle that? Do we explain to them that that's what this is? Or do they just think, oh, this is just a jerk?
Hmm.
So I got a lot of comments here in the chat.
Yeah,
We
I
are
see.
stirring up some stuff right here. All right. So Nick says situational discernment more than dual personalities. Be authentic, but also be discerning of your environment and act accordingly. Okay. Let's see. Sarita, a good black, the true story of race in America by Paul and Bear is something we should all read. Okay, thank you for that suggestion. All right, we got Michael Cork here, my good friend. He said there has to be an understanding and acceptance that we are naturally multi-conscious. The issue is appropriateness for different situations. First, be a recognition of being able to, I guess, to recognize the situation, and secondly, behaving in a way that makes you most effective is in the situation. It's not compromise at all, as it is wisdom. Tap into the multiple aspects of self. Most of us feel or have felt the whole range of emotions. So his comment brings to mind what I've been doing lately, which is polling people. And I even asked you this, the question about when did you know you were black?
Mm.
When did you, recognize, and probably this happened as a child. And when I say a child, I mean under the age of 18, where there was something, some experience, some encounter that caused you to recognize, okay, you know, my skin color, my experience is a little different from these other people, right?
Yeah.
That don't have the same skin color or have had some different experiences. And so I want to hear from you all on that, but we got a lot of other comments, so I want to bring those up as well. All right, so Nick said all men created equal is a vision that we will all spend our lives seeking and chasing, but will likely die before we see the vision realized. We may never lie to our children with the thought that we've achieved equal, but may we never tell our children not to fight for equality, for equality is a worthy cause to die for. Mm. And now, Nick, folks aren't talking equality so much, but they're talking equity.
Equity. Yeah.
Equity, equity, equity. All right. Marjorie said it is unfortunate looking at identifiers on job applications alone would let everyone know race matters, and this talk is necessary. The sad part is there is acceptance for all of the categories. However, race, which has been there the longest, creates the greatest space for rejection.
Mhm.
Interesting. I kind of agree with you, Marjorie, on that one. All right, we got Nasheed Medyun, one of my former guests on. He said the boys wanted us to craft our identity, the one we would like shared. Black American Black women carry a triple consciousness, and so does LGBTQ. I am certain people adapt for environment they are in, which is part of what we are talking about. All right. And then Solomon is back. He said, our natural oppressors leave us no other choice but to be caught up in racism on a day to day basis. We can try to set it aside out of fatigue, life, etc., but Trump has allowed more and more of these people to show us who they really are. They are our coworkers, politicians, church family, bosses, etc. Stop sleeping around these white folks because they never sleep around us. All right, Solomon. All right. And then Marjorie said the level of hatred towards something as simple as an African American Ariel Little Mermaid should bring forth a level of concern that others want young black children from primary ages to feel they are different. Yeah. Suzette, who is on here, I don't think I put her comment up. She has a talk show as well on YouTube. She's a fellow YouTuber, and that's I'm actually scheduled to be on her show this coming Thursday. But we were talking about that as well. This I guess some of the backlash from the African American Ariel Little Mermaid. And again, it's 2022. What? What's the big deal? I don't get it. I don't get it, but hey, you know. So, Michael, what are we gonna do?
Hey, the people in the comments said it, right?
They
So
are saying it. I appreciate y'all, everybody who's commenting.
yeah, like I think as Black people, African Americans in the United States, especially, because racism is different in different parts of the world, right?
Hmm.
But in the United States, um, historically speaking, the powers that be don't want community among Black folks, and
Hmm.
so they use literally whatever they can to keep us divided.
Hmm.
um, that in and of itself helps create a different consciousness of knowing not how to act around people who might oppress you, but knowing that there's a level of that at play when you are around people who are trying to oppress you, systemically speaking, right?
Hmm.
So the saying like don't show all your cards, right? So you can still be authentically yourself without revealing the master plan around folks who might not have your best interest at heart. And I think that that speaks to the double consciousness or the multi consciousness, knowing that these people are not for me. So while I can still be authentically myself, I don't have to share every aspect of myself. No one just automatically deserves to have all of you anyway. So
Hmm.
we have to protect those parts of us, right? Um, and it's not to say that other people of color wouldn't necessarily fall on that list of people trying to oppress you either. But let's just pretend that black people are always for black people. Just pretend. Um,
Let's just
so
pretend.
yeah. Um, so being one way around white people, not to say that you have to act differently, but certainly protecting yourself because there may be a layer of oppression at work.
Hmm.
um, Whereas if you're with a group of kinfolk, you still don't have to necessarily share all of yourself with them, but there can be a certain level of comfort, right? And I admit it's not with all black people, it's not with all people of color. It ties into somebody was talking about discernment of the situation.
Hmm.
Absolutely. In all situations, you have to protect yourself. People will try to steal your joy. I don't know what they get out of it, but they will try to steal it, and so you protect yourself. Um, Having a multi consciousness, I think, allows you to protect yourself in various situations, and not teaching our kids to do that specifically, but teaching them how to discern, right? How to protect themselves physically, spiritually, mentally, psychologically, however it is that we want our babies to protect themselves. It would be best if we showed them before they face these battles out in the world on their own.
Hmm. So, let me just pause real quick. And for those of you who may be just joining us, this is my little station ID break. You are watching myself and Michael Davidson, and we are talking about double consciousness. Should Black parents be teaching their children to have a double identity or double consciousness? So I'm gonna scroll back up to Nick, and he mentioned equality. Equality means each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunities. Equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances and allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome.
Mhm.
All right. So thank you for that definition because words do make a difference. All right, Michael Cork came back and said race plays a role on every level of social empowerment. Classism has become a driver to limit access. However, on every level, racism still divides. So understand, a black billionaire has more access than most poor whites, but he or she will never have the same access as a white billionaire. Hmm. So even with the classism, there still is racism, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't read this article, but I saw the title of it, and it was $100,000 salary for a black person is not the same $100,000 salary for a white person, and they
Mm.
were speaking to you know equity. So situations that a black family might face, where that $100,000 would be stretched, having to provide for way more versus a white person making the same salary, you know, just literally intergenerational wealth, financially speaking,
Mm-hmm.
that alone uh, could play a major role in how our kids are set up for the future.
So you know what? This just popped in my head, but it sounds like we need a cost of living increase for being black in America.
Oh, yeah. Reparations. What are you talking about? Yeah,
Listen,
don't hold your breath.
every year we need a cost of living increase.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So Solomon came back on and said that I'm gonna need my black men to stop selling out our people as well. We are all well aware of the tricks and traps of our natural oppressors, but our black men tend to overlook these evils off the strength of a come up. Our black men are not exempt from this conversation, Nicole. If we're going to discuss this, then let's discuss it in its entirety. Okay. Yes, sir, Solomon. So let us know what you think should happen. I mean, you are kind of spelling it out now, but expound some more, please, if you don't mind. All right, Ozzy said he want 15%. Look, that sounds good to me.
Mhm.
Sounds good to me. All right. So you and I also talked about again our children being kind of less resilient,
Mhm.
right? And is that a result of us kind of shielding them? I think some of the mindset has been, we want our children to have much more than we had and do much better than we have. But do they know the value of working for it and, having to overcome some of the obstacles? And some of the obstacles are around the racism, the bias, the discrimination, the prejudice. You know. So, any thoughts around that? All right, Brian said money alone don't won't fix it. Access is what we need.
Yeah.
Hmm. So, how can we make our children more resilient? We talked about discernment. We talked about, uh, I guess, having some kind of tough conversations with them, right?
Mhm.
Um, any other thoughts around us making them more resilient?
I mean, I think teaching, teaching our youth in all capacities, right? Not just parents, but
Mm-hmm.
teachers, pastors, ministers,
Mm-hmm.
neighbors, anybody who plays a role in a child's life. There's always an opportunity to bond. Doesn't have to be something epic, but creating those relationships and building trust, and then
Mm-hmm.
that could turn into somebody else who's like teaching you things along the way. And sometimes children don't listen to their parents. If your mom or your dad is trying to teach you something, just the fact that it's coming from them sometimes means I'm not listening. Um, Whereas if your teacher or your coach or somebody who you actually like a bit more than your parents, if they give you that same information, you're more likely to hear it. So teaching our kids how to discern, um,
Mm-hmm.
teaching them how to value things. There's so many issues we could tackle here, but like in America, we have this sense of throw it away and get a new one. You know,
Mm,
like value what you have, take care
hmm.
of it
Take
because
care of what you have.
yeah, take care of what you have,
Hmm.
and you know, teaching those things, I think will go a long way. Everything is interconnected, right? So giving them chores. If you want to do things, you want that bag of chips, you're going to have to earn it. And it
Hmm.
could be doing the dishes. And don't do it halfway. Like there are expectations. If you want those chips, you need to do the dishes. It needs to be done right. Let me show you what I mean by right.
Hmm.
Show them, they do it. Great. Here's your allowance. You can go get those chips.
Okay. So we got a few comments. I want to read this one from Olivia. She said she just had to have a conversation with her oldest son who started his first job and is dealing with racism. There were lots of hard truths shared,
Yeah.
but glad that you had that conversation. And this actually, what Sarita is saying was a thought that I had, which was around our history. Teaching our children about our history is a start towards building resilience. So, do we, is there some strength that is transferred when we, hear the stories of our ancestors who overcame, you know, or even our ancestors that are not blood ancestors, but your, Denmark VCs, your Harriet Tubmans, your, you know, Jack Johnsons, this the list kind of goes on, but folks that kind of not kind of that fought against the racism, the prejudice, the discrimination, the bias, folks that gave their lives, they sacrificed their lives so that we could be free,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. And Brian's comment is tied right into what Sarita just said.
We have to show them what happened to our ancestors as well as what is happening right now, and creating dialogue where they are an active part of the conversation. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. Um,
So Michael's asking, why do we say they aren't as resilient?
yes.
Their fight isn't the same fight. If it is, then that's our fault. You're right, Michael Cork. So not that they're not handling our fight, right? But each generation, at least like in my family, was the idea was like to give your children a better experience so that they don't have to have the same struggles. But
Mm-hmm.
then each generation, there are less obstacles that you have to overcome. But then, okay, so let's say your children don't have to walk to school. Let's say you drive them to school, or they catch the school bus, or you're fortunate enough to have a private driver take them to school.
Mm-hmm.
um, can those kids appreciate the independence of like having to wake themselves up, get ready for school on time by themselves, um, helping siblings, like appreciating that time that it
Mm-hmm.
might take if you had to catch like a public bus, um, or if you had to walk to school, like that would even teach time management. And so these little lessons that you learn as a part of dealing with a particular struggle, those things ultimately create resilience in generations. But when we make things a little easier,
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing that, okay, this child, you know, they missed the school bus. Now they don't know how to get to school. So instead they just turn around and go back home. Well, one, we have to teach our kids that that's not acceptable. um you don't miss the school bus. Like that's terrible. You have to go to school. And if you miss the school bus, you don't turn around and go back home. You still have to go to school. um but just their brains are not used to troubleshooting. So if like back in the day I had to catch public transportation, And so I knew what time I had to be at this bus to connect to that bus to
Mm-hmm.
get across town to go to the better school. So these are the kinds of things we're talking about. If your kid, and it translates to other examples, but if children don't have to catch public transportation, that's a lesson in time management that they're not getting. That's a lesson in like just natural resources that they can't take into account because they don't have to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Nick said, "Can we have a conversation on power versus money with our children? The two are not the same, and a lot of the time we are taught to choose money over power." Hmm. I mean, that's a valid point, Nick.
Yeah.
So, power versus money. All right. I'm gonna have to marinate on that one a little bit. But I mean, it's important.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. Solomon came back and said again, Trump brought out some of the most unusual things from the least expected people, i.e., black ministers, black musicians, black entrepreneurs, black social media figures, people that came from the quote hood. I'm still waiting on Lil Wayne to speak on the Brett Favre situation with Favre stealing welfare money from the poor people in Mississippi. Wayne still silent about his buddy doing that, but Wayne was the main one that was trying to debunk racism just a few years ago. Yeah, I think sometimes we just, choose our battles in certain seasons, and maybe this is not the season for Weezy to do all of that. So I don't know. I can't speak to that, but I hear you. So I don't know. Where do we go from here? I don't. I feel kind of like there's like a little bit of no resolve. I mean, I we've talked about again sharing history.
Hmm.
We've talked about discernment again, um, but not allowing being authentic selves, but not showing our complete hand, right?
Yeah, so it's a way of simplifying the conversation, but basically we need to teach our kids our history, where
Mm-hmm.
we come from.
Mm-hmm.
Like in schools, they teach there were slaves. That's a false narrative.
Mm-hmm.
They kidnapped people and then they enslaved them. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't steal slaves. Um, they enslaved tons of people, and that right there, when I realized that like you said earlier, Nicole, words matter. So
They
like
do.
they weren't slaves; they were enslaved people,
They were enslaved people.
and that matters.
Mm-hmm.
So teaching our kids, they kidnapped hundreds of people.
So we
They
talking about human trafficking, right?
oh yeah, all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they kidnapped them, they enslaved them, and everyone, of course, didn't make that journey. Some people jumped off the ship.
Right.
Some people died on the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and for those who survived, right, that is that's some sort of epic strength to survive that journey, make it to a new land where you are stripped of everything
Mm-hmm.
and still survive. Yes, there's trauma there. There's a lot of trauma there, but you survived. Your
Mm.
genes survived.
Yeah.
Your genetics went on. That's why we have African American people today. The whole title African American is because of our ancestors
Mm-hmm.
being kidnapped from Africa and coming here to
Mm-hmm.
the United States. Well, it wasn't that back then, but
Right.
coming to North America.
Mm-hmm.
So teaching them our history, but not just like teaching it like they do in school. We have to be honest with them. Roots is a great way. We were talking about this, Nicole. Roots changed my life.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't see Roots till I was an adult. My mom had it on VHS, but she
Mm-hmm.
didn't want us to watch it because it made her angry.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
it made her angry, and because she had to work amongst white folks, she couldn't watch it because then the next day she would go to work and be very angry at all of them.
Mm.
So I didn't get to watch it when I was a child, but I watched them I watched it as an adult, and it changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
Take them on the trip to the Black Archives. It's a mind blowing experience. Yeah, the Smithsonian Museum in D.C.
Yes,
Another mind blowing
it
experience.
is. Everybody needs to go.
Teach them history while giving them tools to deal with the present, so they don't become disillusioned when dealing with the complications of being Black in America. Absolutely, Olivia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Teaching our children that we are the products of that epic strength of the enslaved people is powerful. You're right, Sarita. It is.
Mm-hmm.
We survived in spite of
Yes.
all of their attempts,
Mm-hmm.
centuries of their attempts to erase us.
Yeah.
Made
Indeed.
you angry, also, Raymond. I hear that. I hear you.
Mm-hmm. So I've been asking folks to share their experience, like when they found out they were Black. So I shared with Michael the other day that for me it was back in the second grade. I was 7 years old, and Roots had come out, and so I, witnessed, what was going on in terms of Kunta Kinte being beat and his foot getting chopped off, and they changing his name, and all of these things, and I did not feel good about that. It really made me feel some kind of way. I do recall watching the series with my parents. I don't recall us really having conversation around it so much. I may have asked a question or two, but I can recall the next day at school, some of the Black boys in particular, like hitting the white children because they were, taking out their frustration about Roots. And so, even though I didn't fully understand what was going on, that's when I felt like there was a difference between myself and white people. And so, as of course time progressed and you learn more and you experience more, you get a better understanding. But uh, you know, I think we have those experiences as children, some way, somehow. Maybe somebody calls us, the N word, or what have you, and maybe we don't fully understand what's going on, but again, we get those reminders from time to time, that we are Black here in America. So let's see. We had a comment. Maya said, "I had my children watch the Black Archives on television, and they were so engaged by seeing celebrities' reenactments of these events and stories. It definitely starts at home." Indeed. Marjorie said, "I feel like the best gift I can give my child is to teach my kids how to move in any social setting. My daughter watches me, emulates my behaviors, and perfects it. Letting her know how to read a room and knowing they do not want you here, but demanding your respect nonetheless, and get everything you came for from the same group that rejected you. The next generation is going to do something we've never seen." I hope so, Marjorie. I do. Um, I'm hopeful, but I am a little bit concerned. Uh, Brian said Roots had us fighting in school every year. Okay, listen, got upset about Roots. And then Nick said, "Let me explain. Money buys things in some people." Let me rewind that. Money buys things in some people, but power needs no money and moves and inspires people with a vision of what could be. I like that. I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Solomon said, "Many of our Black men are clueless of the impact that we have on our women, children, and community. We, Black men, can do so much more to advance our people, but we fail to do so for one reason or another. So, unfortunately, when our families go astray due to our absence, we have systems like Department of Corrections that assist us in controlling ourselves." Dr. Umar once said that a lot of our babies suffer from ADHD, ain't no daddy at home disorder. Ooh, mm, that's a powerful one. Yeah, that's a whole nother live. Brother Solomon, I have actually done a couple shows on fatherlessness. So yeah, that's agreed. Wow, 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 wow. This has been good. This has been good. So yeah. When did you know you were Black? That's the question. I'm gonna be asking y'all that on these streets. When did you know? When did you know? When did you know? All right. Let's see. Solomon says, still haven't put my finger on this weakness. As I always say, the spirit of the black man died with Dr. King, members of the Black Panther Party, etc. All right. Very good. Well, Michael, we are kind of coming to the close of our talk. I think just to kind of recap again, history, right?
Yeah.
Our family history, but also just Black history, period.
Yeah.
Some suggestions have been Black Archives, the National Museum of Arts and Culture, African Museum of Arts and Culture up in DC. Um, what else? Uh, Discernment, right?
Yeah.
Discernment.
Yeah.
What else? What else? What else? Um, being your authentic self, not showing your full hand. What else? What else? What else? Having those tough conversations. Nick said, "Wait a minute, we ain't we ain't ready to be done." What you want to say, Nick? What is it? Come on, you talked about money and power, so we're gonna have to come back maybe for a round two on that.
Mhm.
I like that explanation about money buys things and people, but power needs no money and moves and inspires people to with a vision of what could be. So, yeah. Marjorie said, sad enough, I knew I was blackity black from my own family. Island families differentiate worse than the world at times. Yes, Marjorie. Whew, the colorism too. That's a whole nother thing. We have to have another show on that. Thank you, Brian. Excellent discussion. Appreciate it. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Cousin Raymond. Appreciate you. So, I mean, those are some of the things. I don't know. Nick said he's not ready to get off, but all right, we'll have to come back. We'll have to come back. My mom said to be continued.
Mm.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
We can do that. We can do that. We can do that. Maybe we'll have a panel so we can get some other points of view, right? So, Michael, tell folks how can they connect with you? How can folks connect with you? Tell them. I don't think we mentioned who you with. So
No, we didn't.
let them know. Let them know.
So I'm a mental health clinician. I work for Family Resources Incorporated in Tallahassee. Nicole's got my contact information flashing there at the bottom of the screen. You can also find me on Instagram at Paradox Counselor. My email address is michaeld@famresources.com. I am based in Tallahassee, but I can provide services virtually to the entire state of Florida. So
Very good. He is a rattler,
that's right.
and he
Two
is
times HBCU.
a two-time HBCU. Listen, um, we appreciate you. I really do appreciate you being on here. If this has been beneficial, and you all have been chiming in, but just let us know. He said, great show. Enjoying this dope cast today. Enjoyed y'all. Great topic. Let's see. Great topic. Yes, Marjorie put up the rattlers for you. ah, okay. Solomon said we need you in the army. So Solomon is in the army. Okay. All right. Great episode. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So definitely for those who are again new to the platform, please like and subscribe. Subscribe to the Conversation with Nicole YouTube channel. And let folks know. We want to keep this conversation going. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Tag somebody that you think should watch this show. All right. Ozzy said, awesome conventional piece. Okay. To read a thought provoking topic. Thank you for being on here. Sister Glover, keep striking. Thank you. And my sister, kudos. This is deep. Got me thinking about how to teach my sons. Yes, teaching my nephews. They are 3 and 4. So, whew, yeah. I don't know. I struggle with having to talk with our babies about these types of things, but the conversations do need to be had. Thank you, Pamela. Appreciate you. Thank you, Solomon. Thank you, Shirley. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. So we will be on Wednesday. Wednesday, we'll be talking about the process of healing yourself. The process of healing yourself. And then Friday is my regular seasonal show, season 11. And I will have Sika Rose Green on. That show comes on at 7 a.m. on the Conversations with Nicole YouTube channel, as well as Greater Works Network. And Sika Rose Green is the executive director of the Children's Services Council here in Tallahassee. So you definitely want to check that out. And we have a podcast. So if you don't want to necessarily look at the video, you can listen. I know there are a number of podcasters out there. So by all means, check out the podcast because, we'll just be chopping it up, chopping it up. So, again, thank you, Michael, so much for your insight and for helping to facilitate this conversation. And all the best with your um, with what you do. And like I said, we're gonna get you involved with some of the black men here locally in Tallahassee. So we're gonna make some things happen.
Cool.
All right. All right, good people. We will see y'all next time. Have a good evening.